A 2-week ceasefire has been established in the war in the Middle East. The United States and Iran have reached an agreement. However, this does not mean the war is over. The war may restart soon, and this could just be preparation for the next conflict. Today, let's examine this topic closely. Let's begin. The ceasefire was announced roughly 90 minutes before President Trump's ultimatum deadline. At the brink of escalation, a 2-week truce has offered a temporary solution. The US agreed to stop attacking Iran for 2 weeks if Iran opened the Strait of Hormuz, and both sides agreed. President Trump posted on Truth Social that on the condition that Iran agrees to a complete, immediate, and safe opening of the Strait of Hormuz, he agrees to suspend bombing and attacks on Iran for 2 weeks. At the same time, President Trump emphasized that this has become a ceasefire that applies to both sides. Until now, President Trump had continued the war by issuing several ultimatums. President Trump reportedly made this decision after being asked to hold off on destructive military action during talks with Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and Army Chief Asim Munir. Luckily, Iran ordered its military to stop hostile actions, allowing the ceasefire to continue for now. President Trump also said that he received a proposal from Iran consisting of 10 clauses and believes this could serve as a viable basis for negotiations. I think I should explain these 10 clauses in more detail. 1. Complete end to regional conflicts. 2. Permanent end to the war, not just a temporary ceasefire. 3. Cessation of Israeli attacks on Hezbollah and Lebanon. 4. Complete lifting of sanctions against Iran and international sanctions. 5. Establishment of a system to guarantee safe navigation in the Strait of Hormuz. 6. Lifting of the blockade on the Strait of Hormuz and reopening of shipping routes. 7. Imposing a transit fee per vessel passing through the Strait of Hormuz. 8. Distribution of transit fee revenue among 5 parties. 9. Use of transit fees for post-war infrastructure reconstruction costs. 10. Official recognition of Iran's uranium enrichment rights under the NPT. Iran claims the US accepted these 10 provisions, but the US denies it. We'll have to wait for more details. After the ceasefire was announced, rumors spread. The ceasefire plans from the United States and Iran differed. Many factors made it hard to believe the United States and Iran truly agreed on the ceasefire plan. For the United States, it seemed they had accepted Iran's right to enrich uranium, which was illogical. This likely occurred due to the lack of a unified ceasefire plan. On top of that, according to an Associated Press report, it was also reported that the ceasefire plan for the Gulf of Oman and the one for the Persian Gulf were different from each other. The ceasefire plan for the Gulf of Oman did not include any mention of recognizing the right to enrich uranium, but the Persian Gulf ceasefire plan did include such a statement. Because of this, some people started saying that someone might have tampered with the plans in the middle to push for a ceasefire. Since both sides have suffered significant damage, they are scheduled to begin full-scale negotiations to coordinate the detailed terms on the 10th in Islamabad, Pakistan. Most people are saying that this ceasefire is just a preparation period for the next war. The reason for this is that neither the United States nor Iran has gained much from this war. Iran appears to be seeking more compensation by any means, while the United States has changed little, raising questions about why they fought this war. They wanted regime change, but now even more hardliners are in control. However, that doesn't mean Iran
순순히 핵 개발을 포기할 용의를 가지고 있지도 않고요.
Right now, focus less on when the war ended and more on the military activity happening behind the scenes. US military forces are being deployed to the Middle East, with the George Herbert Walker Bush Aircraft Carrier Strike Group arriving by late April, ready for operations. This timing is crucial. The 2-week ceasefire ends around the 23rd or 24th, almost matching when the Aircraft Carrier Strike Group becomes operational. This hardly seems like a coincidence. Currently, this is likely a forced redeployment phase for a larger operation, with attacks paused. Additionally, the situation in Israel is very serious. According to recent reports, it's being assessed that Israel's stockpile of air defense missiles has been significantly depleted. As Israel intercepts ongoing missile and drone attacks from Iran and Hezbollah, its Iron Dome and LO series assets are being quickly depleted. At the same time, there are analyses suggesting that US air defense systems deployed in the Middle East have also suffered some damage due to repeated attacks. If the war had continued, the defense network might have collapsed first, so the current ceasefire.
외교적 성과라기보다 군사적 재정.
In these 2 weeks, the United States can redeploy its naval and air forces, including carrier strike groups, Israel can restore its air defenses, and Iran can reorganize its missile forces and command system. Although gunfire has ceased, preparations for the next conflict continue internally. Given the overall trend, it's more realistic to view this 2-week ceasefire as a chance for both sides to regroup before a bigger conflict rather than as a step toward ending the war. Then who is the biggest victim in this war? In fact, the country that has suffered the most in this war is Iran. The damage to its infrastructure and the human toll are both enormous. As third parties, East Asian countries, especially Korea, China, and Japan, are suffering significant damage. Korea, China, and Japan mainly get crude oil from the Middle East and often use the Strait of Hormuz. Due to this war, the Strait of Hormuz was closed, leading to an energy crisis. As a result, oil prices rose significantly, and so did the cost of living. Some industries were facing such a shortage of crude oil and other resources that there were even talks about factory operations possibly being halted soon. A ceasefire has been reached, keeping the Strait of Hormuz open for 2 weeks, giving us some relief. However, with the risk of renewed war, the situation remains uncertain. East Asian countries must quickly secure alternative routes. The main issue now is the toll fee Iran has introduced. During this negotiation process, there's a discussion about imposing a certain level of toll fee instead of fully opening the Strait of Hormuz. If this is actually agreed upon, its impact could be even greater than the war itself. Until now, the Strait of Hormuz has been considered an international waterway, and the principle of free navigation has applied. It wasn't a structure where the coastal country demanded toll fees, but now Iran is trying to change this structure. The countries that will be especially affected are the East Asian countries. South Korea, China, and Japan depend heavily on Middle Eastern oil, most of which travels through the Strait of Hormuz, making them directly impacted by Iran's passage conditions. If costs ranging from hundreds of thousands to even millions of dollars per ship start to be imposed, oil prices will naturally come under upward pressure. The import costs for refineries will rise, and that burden will eventually spread to the entire power, transportation, and manufacturing sectors. There's also a strong possibility that this could trigger a chain reaction affecting consumer prices, but the problem doesn't end here. Once a precedent is set, other countries with straits or strategic choke points may also try to take a similar approach. For example, if a certain country starts tightening passage conditions or demanding fees on the grounds of its territorial waters, the global maritime logistics system that has been maintained until now could be shaken. This is not just an energy issue, but a problem connected to the very foundation of the international trade order. That's why East Asian countries are now facing a very complex dilemma. From a security perspective, it's difficult to intervene directly in the Middle East situation, and economically, it's not easy to reduce their dependence. In the end, their options are limited. The choice is to either cover costs to maintain passage or pursue a long-term shift in energy supply. It's not a short-term problem, and the outcome of these negotiations could greatly affect East Asia's economic burden. Also, these 2 weeks are significant, not random. In terms of the timeline, this is a very significant period. The current ceasefire is expected to end between April the 23rd and 24th. At the same time, the George Herbert Walker Bush Aircraft Carrier Strike Group will reach Middle Eastern waters and prepare for operations. This means that while these 2 weeks are a time for negotiations, they also serve as a preparation period to move on to the next stage militarily without any gaps. With air, naval, and missile forces already being deployed in stages, a structure is in place to launch operations immediately when the ceasefire ends, without extra deployments. Preparation is needed to restart the war. But now, that preparation is already nearing completion. In particular, we should pay attention to the timing of the negotiations. Both sides plan to hold negotiations in Islamabad, Pakistan, but if talks aren't quickly resolved, the situation could change rapidly. If negotiations are delayed or key issues cause conflict, the ceasefire may not be extended. In that case, the ceasefire ends and military action resumes right away. Since the forces are already in position and the operational plans are prepared, there is no reason for any delay. In fact, there's a high possibility that an even stronger strike will be carried out. So far, attacks have been limited, but the next phase could involve large-scale airstrikes hitting bigger targets at once, not just infrastructure bases and key sites. Considering this overall trend, these 2 weeks are not a time for peace, but rather a time for making choices. If negotiations succeed, it could lead to easing tensions, but the moment they fail, the situation will immediately move on to the next phase. So this period is not a pause in the war, but rather more like a countdown to deciding when the next war begins.